Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Tonight, what I want to talk about is family. Ananda Mayama said that there is only one family of seekers, and that is everyone in the entire world. What she called family was everyone in the world. And the question is, how do we, from our more limited perspective and experience, come to embrace everyone in the world as a family, one family, a single family of seekers? Well, it turns out that the answer isn't anything about what we try to do to transform our idea of family. We don't really have to think about this because it happens naturally. So I realized that this week when I was thinking about family, the same process of moving from very little view of family and experience of family to larger view and experience of family happens starting from when we're an infant. And it just happens exactly the same way throughout our lives until eventually when we are more consciously seeking something like waking up, then just the more subtle parts of that process unfold very, very naturally. So if you think of an infant, a baby, they really don't make much distinction at first between themselves and their mom and their dad. You know, there's like one world and it consists of them, their mom, and their dad, right? But they're just having an experience of mom and dad as kind of being an extension of them. And then anybody who's been around kids or had past kids knows that at some point fairly soon, I don't really know exactly what age, I'm not a child development expert, but I would say very soon after birth, maybe 6 months or a little bit more, the child begins to notice that, oh, there's like stuff out there, and I'm having this experience of space in between me and stuff, and mom and dad are here. And then you'll see often, I'm sure you've had this experience with kids, infants, where they'll kind of like reach out towards something or go to something, whether it's another person or an object. And then after a few moments, they'll get scared that, oh my God, I'm out here. And, you know, and they'll like race back to mom, right? Or race back to dad. So you might meet a little baby for the first time. Maybe they're 6 months or 8 months old or something like that. And they'll reach out to you and then they'll go, and they'll like cling to mom and dad, right? And then eventually they'll become more confident and less afraid about physically separating from their parents. And so then they start, you know, crawling around and exploring stuff. But there's still that sense of they have to come back to home base. They get scared at different points, right? And then there's going to school, or the first time if you're going to daycare or wherever you're going as a kid. But there's that transition time when you really, well, it depends on the kid, of course, because I just wanted to get away from home as fast as I possibly could. There was a funny story my mom told me about. I had to go in the hospital because I had some sort of pain and they thought something might be seriously wrong with me, but it turns out there wasn't. Anyway, I had to stay overnight in the hospital, and my mom was very worried about me, you know, being like scared and lonely and stuff. So she stayed, but then eventually she had to go home and sleep, and I had to stay in the hospital by myself. I was 3. And she said she was very worried the next day as she raced back to the hospital. And as she was walking down the hall toward the room where I was staying, she heard my little voice going, "We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz." She came in and she said I was lying in my little hospital crib with my legs propped up against the railings, just like singing.
You were having a ball.
Huh?
You were having a ball.
I was having a ball. So anyway, but usually kids go through a second sort of somewhat nervous thing around spending more time away from their parents and having to go to school, and there's some sort of transition period, and there's always that kind of back and forth between attachment to what is very familiar and where you feel more comfortable, and then going out into the larger world where there's like different kinds of experiences, right? And then of course we get to adolescence where there's usually another great period of separation that involves some kind of rebellion or really trying to stake a claim in your own life in some way, right? But oftentimes it's sort of in opposition. For some reason it gets set up as an opposition. But then later on there's another separation, like when you get into your 20s, when you actually start to see your parents as just other people. You often hear people in their 20s thinking, wow, I thought my mom and my dad were this, but now I look at them and I see that, or I really was upset with my mom and dad because of something, but, now I just see them as other people, and I see that they're just having the same problems everybody else has, and I don't hate them so much, or something like that. And then we get into the stage where we are really getting, in our 30s, we're really getting ensconced in our own lives. Maybe we're having our own children, and we start to develop a completely different relationship to our birth family. So the point is that we're constantly going through this process of renegotiating separation from our family and renegotiating connection and what that means. And each stage of the way entails kind of entering into a larger world as the impetus or the transformation that's happening that's causing us to want to renegotiate or reevaluate our relationship with our family. Of course, if somebody stayed at the level of an infant, like if a grown person were clinging to their mom, that we would think that was completely pathological. Or even, if somebody an adult had a more teenager-like or a more 20-something-like relationship to their parents, or when people even get older, if they're still really hanging on to the hurts and the wrongs that they experienced. If you're like 70 and you're still talking about what happened in 5th grade, there's something that's too attached there, right? That hasn't matured. We would all kind of agree that there was something that hadn't matured there, or something that hadn't healed, or something that really had prevented this person from entering into full maturity. And yet, when it comes to entering into a spiritual practice in more than a perfunctory way, people get very worried about what is going to happen to my relationship to my family. This is one of the questions that I get most often from new people, and also from people that have been around for a while, talking about, again, how their feelings or their relationship to their family change over time because of the changes that are happening to them as a result of their spiritual practice. This is just another step. And it has to do with moving from more gross experience, me, mom, boob, dad, to more refined and a bigger view. It's just a natural progression. And where we are going eventually, probably not in this lifetime for most of you, but eventually, is to the real experience that everyone is your family, or everyone is your friend. It could be put in any number of ways, but that progression into the larger view, a larger world that includes more and more people, is naturally restated over and over again through our lives, lived through in different ways. And we're still living through it as spiritual practitioners. As we are opening our hearts more, let's say we get into a community like this, and we're thrown together with a bunch of people that we didn't choose, unless we brought a friend along and they became a member too, most of the people we're dealing with intimately in a spiritual community are people that are there because of the teachings and or the teacher, not because we chose them to be our best buds. So we're thrown into this situation where we're learning the intrinsic value of other people that we didn't choose. That is hugely life-changing, or can be if you're open to it. You learn that you can love all different kinds of people, that they don't have to be those perfect people that you picked or projected on, or their perfection or whatever. They can be anybody. What's one of the beauties of spiritual communities, that you learn that you can love everybody as a friend, as a family member. And then eventually, in whatever lifetime you decide to enter into this much more fully, you understand where you're going, that you understand that the end point, the natural resolution of all love is to love everybody, and to not have a special family that you hold higher than, dearer than everybody else. That comes about not because of anything you think. It comes about because of what you do. It comes about because you open your heart. It comes about because you relax your tensions and your fixations. And it's exactly the same process as that starts, the minute that we're born, where we begin to just include more and more and more people in our lives, more and more people that we can love and respect and feel are valuable. Now, some of us, of course, get stuck temporarily. There's many people that are very attached to one other person, or two other people, or three other people, or people that are very attached to some version of an extended family or some version of their particular group of friends. But Anandamayi Ma called that kind of family an illusion or a delusion many, many times. Not because we shouldn't love our families, but because it's exclusive, because it is based on me and mine. That this is her words, not my words. That kind of family that only includes 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 people and a few friends is based on a kind of proprietary relationship to certain people, and a false sense of security, and a very limited kind of love. So that's why she called it delusory, not because it's bad in and of itself, but because it's just limited. We often spend many, many, many lifetimes, having that kind of ordinary experience where we hold certain relationships much higher than others, and we dismiss people when they don't behave the way we think they should, or they don't feel the way we think they should, or we think they're not our kind of person, or we think they're the enemy, or they're inhuman, or what. There are many, many, many things that we think about other people in order to consolidate our own sense of belonging to a smaller group of people. And of course, we know that that is not self-realization. And at some point, who knows when, you'll find that it's naturally desirable to love everybody. Even as you might find yourself holding back, you'll have a natural desire to include everybody in your affections. So this is the entire process that starts from infancy and works exactly the same way all the way along the path. I'm going to stop there, and we can talk about family and spirituality and our relationship to family through the lens of our practice, or how our families support us or hold us back, or how our feelings about our families have changed. You can also ask about anything else or talk about anything else you want to. This is open satsang, but if you want to talk about family, that's the theme.
I have a question. It's interesting that you're talking about family, because I've recently experienced some close moments with 2 different families that I don't belong to, but I'm very close to. So it was very interesting for me to be part of those groups as a welcome member during moments of tension. And that was quite difficult for me, because on one hand, I would have really liked to be part of that. And so kind of even in the tensions, being able to be included, it was very difficult. And I kind of put myself more in a corner and walked on eggshells because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think a lot about families, and they, every family has difficulties and tensions, and I know mine. And so given that you talked about this tonight, what would you think could be a good approach when you enter other groups to be, I don't know.
Well, first of all, make sure you've been invited.
Right.
That's always a good idea.
Don't crash a family.
Yeah, don't crash anything, really. And the other thing is to just be open-hearted. It's very, very simple. To be there in that circumstance with an open heart, just seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Don't set yourself up as a savior or, anything like that, or a do-gooder. It's the best advice in any circumstance, not just those. It's just to open your heart, be there, and see what happens, and let whatever you have to give or offer come out naturally when needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's no strategy to put in place in advance ever.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into a situation having decided how you're going to be, you're going to be clumsy and make mistakes. The only real way to be in any circumstance is to just be in that circumstance as it's unfolding with your senses and your heart open and just respond. It's like improvisational music. Living is like improvisational music. If you can't decide how to improvise in advance. But you can be there listening to the other instruments and being open and willing and happy to participate. That's really the best way to be 100% of the time.
I've really been noticing so much lately how Kashi House feels different than it did when we first started living together, and just really enjoying how much more relaxed we've become around things like sharing food together. And in the beginning, I can't even remember how we did it, but there was a lot of keeping track of, who, if you prepared a meal for everyone, we would put it on Splitwise and make sure that everything was shared equally. And that's just not happening as much anymore. There's a lot of just spontaneous preparing of food together, and living in that kind of setting has just given me a whole different feeling about community and family. And I find myself keeping track of things so much less than I used to. It just feels like I want to do it because this is my family kind of feeling, much more than anything used to before. So I'm really interested to watch how that continues to evolve and develop. But it feels really nourishing.
What about when there are members of family, and I'm talking about not only blood relatives, but maybe other people in your life that are part of your family, that you wish them well, but you really do not want to be around them? I struggle with that, I feel like I give, it feels like it ignites a selfishness inside of me, and yet at the same time to expose myself to them is a very toxic experience or an extremely uncomfortable experience. And I'm thinking of several different situations in my life.
Well, there's a whole continuum of those kind of situations, as I'm sure you know. Some situations with other people, even relatives, are just too toxic to participate in at all. And only you can decide whether that's the case. But lots of other kinds of family relationships of varying sorts, are, more workable
But how do you
than.
bring the love into when you talk about when you realize that virtually everyone is our family and that our only relationship with the world is through love? I struggle with that.
Well, if you're still struggling with it, it means you
is
just
not
haven't
loving.
embodied it yet, right?
Right.
So don't hold yourself up to a conceptual standard. You are where you are. Someone whose heart really is in that place, whose involvement, spiritually is in that place, doesn't have these kind of problems of wondering how to treat other people. So don't try to bully yourself into feeling like you have to meet that standard. Just be where you are. And the fact of the matter is that even an enlightened person, whatever that means, doesn't spend the same amount of time or even time with every single person. Just because you love everyone doesn't mean that you can't manage your energy or decide, I might love people, but they might not love me back. They might not want me to love them. They might not want what I have to offer. And it's just respectful to them to just let them do that. You can't just because you're in a certain condition doesn't mean everyone else is, or that they even care what condition you're in. So just because we love people, it's not a mandate that they have to respond to us in any particular way. We all know that our own hearts have been closed to the help and nourishment and love that other people that have wanted to give us at times. And it's the same with other people. I was just describing this to some students, because, sometimes people leave spiritual communities, including this community, in a not good way. They leave because they're freaked out about something or whatever. They're just like kind of rolling around like balls in a pinball machine. There are very good ways to leave a teacher and to leave a spiritual community. What is that song? I'm starting to sound very 70s. But anyway, some 50 ways to love. Yeah. People do leave and they graduate and they have, leave in a good way. But then there's other people that just leave because they're in the throes of fixation. And I was saying about what that feels like from my perspective is like I just prepared this beautiful meal for people with all 6 tastes and served it to them with love, and they just like looked at it and said, "Oh, that's disgusting." So you really can't, you really don't have any control over how anyone responds to anything, basically. So we should just love people and not do it expecting some particular response from them. If you don't want to be with people, don't be with them. That is okay. Right? If you feel relationships are just too toxic, then even family, it's okay to not engage with them. A beautiful thing, though, is that in this day and age, we have ways to sort of minimally keep in touch, so we can still express positive feelings and kindness toward people without actually ever seeing them.
There's some emoticons for that.
Yeah, that's actually quite good, because sometimes it's very difficult to be with somebody, but you can send them an email or a text message or say something to them on Facebook and at least express a kindly attitude toward them, which, is a good thing to do, especially with blood family relationships. Along the continuum of not wanting to spend time with people, there's always, you can still communicate but not actually spend time with them. So I think that's actually a good tool that we have these days. You always want to try to, especially for birth family, you want to try to express kindness toward them if possible, But if it's not possible, it's not possible. Then you just have to do it in your prayers, not in any other way. I keep telling my father, you should use email. He doesn't know why I keep saying that. That's just not for me. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.